I knew this wasn't an error the moment I saw the envelope aligned like a warning. Inside was a bill for $247,000 and my legal name, spelled perfectly. But the terror wasn't the money, it was that the IRS was sending mail to my parents' house, a place I left years ago. Then, just as I sat in the IRS office, a stranger approached the front desk and claimed he was my representative. My name is Isla Hayes. I am 33 years old, and I have spent the last decade curating a life so boring that it would be invisible to anyone looking from the outside. I live in Ridgehaven, Pennsylvania, in a second-floor apartment where the rent is reasonable and the neighbors keep to themselves. I am a woman of spreadsheets and calendar alerts. I file my taxes on the first day of February every single year. I have never paid a late fee. I have never overdrawn my checking account, not even by a single cent. My credit score is a point of pride that I check every Friday morning. I am disciplined. I am safe. I am the person who follows the rules, because the rules are the only thing that keeps the chaos of the world at bay. That illusion of safety evaporated at 5:45 in the evening on a Tuesday. I was coming home from work, carrying a single bag of groceries. The hallway of my building usually smells like floor wax and old dust. It was quiet. I walked up the stairs, my keys already sorted in my hand. The brass key for the deadbolt separated from the silver key for the handle. I turned the corner to my apartment, number 2B, and stopped. There was something on my doormat. It was not a flyer for a local pizza place. It was not a package left by a delivery driver. As they always left parcels in the vestibule downstairs, it was a white envelope, a standard, government-issue white envelope with a plastic window. It had not been dropped casually. It had been placed there. It was aligned perfectly parallel with the threshold of my door, dead center on the coarse bristles of the welcome mat. It looked like an architectural element. It looked like a warning. I stood there for a long moment, the plastic bag of groceries cutting into my fingers. My heart did a strange, slow roll in my chest, a heavy thump that I felt in my throat. I looked down the hallway, empty. The air was still. Whoever had placed this here was long gone. But the intent remained. I stepped forward, my boots making a dull sound on the carpet, and crouched down. I didn't want to touch it. That was my first instinct. If I touched it, I accepted it. I reached out and picked it up. It was light, but it felt heavy in the way that bad news always feels heavy. The return address in the upper left corner was unmistakable. Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service. I unlocked my door, fumbled the keys, and almost dropped the groceries. I kicked the door shut behind me and engaged the deadbolt. Then the chain. I didn't take off my coat. I didn't put the milk in the refrigerator. I walked straight to the kitchen island, cleared a space on the granite counter, and set the envelope down. Through the plastic window, I saw my name, Isla J. Hayes. It was printed in bold, block letters. There was no mistake in the spelling. It was my legal name. But below my name, the address was wrong. It listed a house number and street name that made my stomach turn over. It was the address of my childhood home, my parents' house, the house I had moved out of 12 years ago and rarely visited. If the letter was addressed to their house, why was it sitting on my doormat in Ridgehaven? I grabbed a paring knife from the drying rack. My hands were steady, but my knees felt like water. I sliced the top of the envelope open, creating a jagged tear. I pulled out the folded pages. There were 3 of them. I unfolded the first page and smoothed it out on the counter. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The air left the room, in the upper right corner. Inside a black box designed to draw the eye was the heading, Amount Due. Below it was a number that defied comprehension, $247,892.14. I read it again. I read it out loud to the empty kitchen, my voice sounding thin and foreign. $247,000. I had to grip the edge of the counter to keep from falling. This was impossible. I made $62,000 a year as a logistics coordinator. I paid my taxes. I had refunds. I had records. This was a mistake. It had to be a computer error, a glitch in the mainframe, a crossed wire in the vast bureaucracy of the federal government. But as I looked closer, the text on the page began to disassemble my hope. The letter was aggressive. It was not an inquiry, it was a demand. Phrases jumped out at me, printed in stark, uncompromising type. Notice of intent to levy, property or rights to property, seizure of assets. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My fingers were cold, numb at the tips. I opened the camera app. I needed to document this. I needed to capture the insanity of it before the paper dissolved or changed. I snapped a picture of the top corner with the reference number. I snapped a picture of the date. The date on the letter was from 4 days ago. I took a picture of the address block. My name, linked to my parents' address. Then I saw the code. Civil penalty. And below that, a phrase that I did not understand, yet terrified me more than the number itself. Trust fund recovery penalty. I quickly opened a browser on my phone and typed the phrase in. The search results loaded instantly. The blood drained from my face as I read the summary. The trust fund recovery penalty is a penalty against a specific responsible person for the willful failure to collect or pay over withholding taxes for a business. Business. I dropped the phone on the counter. It clattered loudly in the silence. I did not own a business. I had never owned a business. I had never hired an employee. I had never signed a payroll check. This was not a tax on my income. This was a penalty for unpaid payroll taxes. Assigned to me personally. The IRS believed I was the responsible party for a company that had failed to pay the government $250,000. I looked back at the envelope. It was pristine. There were no postmarks, no stamps. That meant it hadn't gone through the mail system to get to my door. It had gone to my parents' house, just as the address indicated, and then someone, my mother, my father, had driven 40 minutes to my apartment, walked up the stairs, and placed it on my mat. They hadn't knocked. They hadn't called. They had delivered it like an assassin delivering a black spot. I felt dirty. I felt physically contaminated. The paper felt like it was coated in something toxic that was seeping into my pores. I turned away from the counter and went to the kitchen sink. I turned the handle all the way to the hot side. I waited for the water to steam. I plunged my hands under the stream. It was scalding, almost burning, but I didn't pull back. I grabbed the dish soap and scrubbed. I scrubbed my palms, my knuckles, the spaces between my fingers. It was a reflex, a desperate attempt to regain control. If I could clean my hands, I could clean this mess. If I could wash away the touch of the paper, I could wash away the debt. I knew it was irrational. I knew washing my hands changed nothing about the horrifying reality sitting on my countertop, but I couldn't stop. I scrubbed until my skin was red and raw, until the heat was a dull throb in my wrists. I dried my hands on a paper towel, moving mechanically. I walked back to the letter. I forced myself to read the smaller print. Liability. Tied to employer/payroll. Quarter ending September 30, 2023. September. I was visiting my parents in September. I had stayed for a weekend to help my dad clear out the garage. I remembered sitting at the kitchen table, the smell of my mother's coffee, the way my father had patted my shoulder and told me how proud he was of my independence. A wave of nausea hit me. I grabbed the edge of the counter again. My phone buzzed. The sound was sharp, piercing the silence. I looked at the screen. A text message notification. Mom. I stared at the name. Usually, seeing her name brought a mild sense of obligation. The anticipation of a long, meandering conversation about the neighbors or the weather. Now, it looked like a threat. I unlocked the phone and opened the message. Isla, honey, we need to talk. You should come home tonight so we can discuss things face to face. It is easier that way. There was no question mark, no context, just a command wrapped in the guise of maternal concern. Easier that way. I looked at the time. It was 6:10 in the evening. They knew. Of course they knew. The letter had gone to them first. They had opened it. They had read it. They had seen the number, $247,000, and they had driven it to my door and left it there. And now they were waiting. They were waiting for me to panic. They were waiting for me to come running back to the house where I grew up. The house where they made the rules. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My throat was closed shut. I needed to see my money. I needed to know that what was mine was still mine. I exited the messaging app and opened my banking application. My thumb hovered over the icon. I tapped it. The screen loaded, the little circle spinning for what felt like an hour. Then, instead of my dashboard, instead of my checking and savings balances, a red banner flashed across the top of the screen. Security alert. My breath hitched. I read the notification below the banner. Account access attempted. Device, Windows PC. Location, Willow Creek, Pennsylvania. Willow Creek, that was where my parents lived. That was their town. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Someone had tried to log into my bank account. Someone in Willow Creek. Someone who knew my username. Someone who thought they might know my password. The letter on the counter wasn't just a bill. It was the first shot in a war I didn't know I was fighting. And the enemy wasn't the IRS. The enemy was waiting for me to drive home. I stared at the red notification on my banking app for a long time, watching the screen dim and then go black. The silence in my apartment was no longer empty. It was heavy, filled with invisible wires tightening around my chest. My parents had delivered the letter. My parents, or someone in their house, had tried to access my bank account. The sequence of events was too precise to be a coincidence. It was a coordinated strike. I needed to hear their voices. I needed to hear the lie before I could figure out the truth. I placed the phone on the counter, next to the terrifying document, and pressed the speakerphone icon. I dialed my mother's number. I didn't hold the phone to my ear. I didn't want them that close to my head. I wanted distance. I wanted to observe them like specimens in a jar. The line rang once, twice. Isla? My mother picked up on the second ring. Her voice was breathless, high-pitched, and laced with a sweetness that made my teeth ache. It was her company voice, the tone she used when the pastor visited or when she was trying to return a blouse she had already worn. "Hi, Mom," I said. My voice sounded flat, stripped of all emotion. I was channeling the cold granite of the countertop beneath my fingers. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, letting out a sigh that sounded theatrical, like a stage actor exhaling for the back row. "I was just telling your father that we haven't heard from you all week. I sent you a text. Did you get it? Are you okay? You sound tired. Honey." The performance was flawless. She was building a reality where everything was normal, where she was just a concerned mother and I was just an overworked daughter. She was rewriting the last 2 hours before we even acknowledged them. "I am standing in my kitchen," I said, cutting through her pleasantries. "I am looking at the envelope you left on my doormat." There was a pause. It was a fraction of a second too long. A natural reaction would be confusion. "What envelope? What do you mean?" But she didn't ask that. She took a breath. "Oh," she said. The pitch of her voice dropped an octave. "You found it. We didn't want to disturb you. We know how much you value your privacy. Isla. It is a letter from the IRS." "Mom," I said. "It says I owe $247,000. I waited. I wanted to hear the gasp. I wanted to see if she would commit to the act. "Oh, Isla," she cried out. The sound was wet, panicked, and utterly unconvincing. It was the sound of someone trying to simulate shock rather than feeling it. "That is terrible. That is, I told your father when it came to the house. I said, 'Gordon, this must be some kind of mistake. It is just awful. Are you sitting down? You sound like you might faint.' 'I am not going to faint,' I said. 'Why is my name on a tax debt for $250,000? Why was it sent to your house?' 'I don't know,' she insisted, her voice climbing the scale again. 'We were just as shocked as you are. That is why we brought it over immediately. We didn't want you to worry.' 'You didn't want me to worry?' I repeated. 'So you dropped a federal demand for payment on my floor and ran away?' 'Give me the phone. Martha.' My father's voice cut in. It was deep, calm, and sounded like gravel grinding together, unlike my mother's frantic energy. My father operated with a terrifying stillness. He was the eye of the storm. Isla, he said. No greeting, no pleasantries, just my name, spoken like a command. Dad, I said. Listen to me, he said. Do not panic. Panic leads to mistakes. I have been looking into this since the mail came. It is very likely a case of identity theft. He said the words, identity theft, with a practiced smoothness, as if he had been rehearsing the phrase in the mirror. It was the perfect modern scapegoat. It was vague. It was common. And it absolved everyone of blame. Identity theft, I said neutrally. Yes, he continued, his voice gaining confidence. It happens all the time now. Someone gets a hold of your social security number. They file some fraudulent paperwork, and the IRS systems go haywire. It is a computer error. Isla, nothing more. We see this kind of thing on the news every night. I looked down at the letter. I looked at the specific code. Trust fund recovery penalty. This wasn't a random hacker filing a fake refund. This was specific. This was targeted. It doesn't look like a computer error, I said. It looks like unpaid payroll taxes. Well, he said quickly. That is exactly what I mean. These hackers, they set up fake corporations. They file these quarterly forms and attach innocent names to them. It is a sophisticated scam. I froze. Quarterly forms? I asked. The line went silent. I hadn't mentioned the date on the letter. I hadn't mentioned that the liability was for the quarter ending September 30th. I had only mentioned the total amount. I didn't say anything about quarterly forms. Dad, I said slowly. It is an assumption. Isla, he said, his tone hardening instantly. He didn't stumble, but the air in the conversation changed. It became colder. IRS issues for that amount are usually corporate. Corporate taxes are filed quarterly. I am using my logic. Something you should try doing right now instead of interrogating your parents. He was good. He was very good. He had covered the slip, but the crack was there. He knew the structure of the debt. He knew the schedule. Con, my mother's voice came back on the line, likely leaning in close to the receiver. Isla, please, this is too much to handle over the phone. You are all alone in that apartment. It's not good for you to be stressing out by yourself. Just get in the car. Come home. I have a pot roast in the oven. We can sit down. Look at the papers together, and your father can call his accountant in the morning to sort this out. It sounded so inviting. Come home. Let us fix it. It was the siren song that had kept me trapped in their orbit for 20 years. If I went there, I would be in their living room, sitting on their furniture, eating their food. I would be a child again, and children don't ask to see the ledger. Children trust their parents. I am not coming home, I said. Isla, my mother said, her voice trembling, don't be like this. We just want to help. If you want to help, I said. Tell me why the IRS thinks I am the responsible person for a business I don't own. We can't help you if you don't let us see the document, my father said. Take a picture of the letter. Send it to me right now. I need to see the reference codes to file the fraud report for you. No, I said. Excuse me? His voice dropped low. It was the tone he used when I was a teenager and missed curfew. It was a warning. I am not sending you a picture of the letter, I said. And you are not filing any reports for me. I will handle this myself. You are being ridiculous, he snapped. The mask of the calm, helpful father slipped, revealing the controlling force underneath. You don't know how to deal with the IRS. They will eat you alive. Isla, they will garnish your wages. They will freeze your accounts. Do you want that? Do you want to lose that little job of yours because you were too stubborn to let your father handle a simple clerical error? My little job pays for my life, I said. And my accounts are my business. Speaking of accounts, why was there a login attempt on my bank account from Willow Creek 10 minutes ago? The silence that followed was total. It was the silence of a vacuum. I don't know what you are talking about, my father said finally. His voice was devoid of inflection. It was a flat line. "I think you do," I said. "You are distraught," my mother interjected, her voice frantic now. "You are imagining things. Nobody touched your account. Isla, please, just drive home. We love you. We just want to protect you." "Protect me?" I looked at the bold text on the letter. Notice of intent to levy. This doesn't feel like protection. "Isla," my father said. "Stop this. Right now. Send me the photo. Do not make this difficult. Do not go around making ace—" He stopped. He cut the word off sharply, like a guillotine blade. Accusations. That was the word he wanted to say. Do not go around making accusations, but he knew that saying it would validate that there was something to accuse him of. He swallowed the word, but the intent hung in the air between us, vibrating through the phone line. "Do not go around making assumptions," he corrected, emphasizing the new word with heavy force. "You are tired. You are not thinking clearly. We will talk in the morning. And Isla?" "Yes?" "Do not call the number on that letter," he said. "Scammers put fake numbers on these things to steal your information. Wait until I verify it." "Good night, Dad," I said. "Isla, don't you dare hang—" I pressed the red button. The connection severed. The kitchen was quiet again, but my heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I felt sick, physically sick. My stomach churned with the realization that the people who were supposed to be my safety net were actually the hunters. I put the phone down and leaned my weight against the counter, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. I wasn't cold, but I was shivering. The phone screen lit up again. I flinched, staring at it. It wasn't my parents. It was a missed call notification. While I had been on the line with them, someone else had tried to call in. I unlocked the screen and looked at the number. It was not stored in my contacts. It was a local number, with the 570 area code. That was the area code for Willow Creek and the surrounding county. I stared at the digits. It wasn't my parents' house line. It wasn't my father's cell phone. It wasn't my mother's cell phone. I quickly opened the search browser on my phone and typed in the number. The results were ambiguous. It was a landline. The location was listed simply as Willow Creek, PA. I tapped the call button. I needed to know. It rang 3 times. Then, a generic voicemail picked up. "You have reached the voicemail of a subscriber who has not set up their mailbox yet. Goodbye." The line clicked dead. I lowered the phone. A burner phone? A private office line? Or the representative my father had mentioned? I looked back at the IRS letter. My eyes scanned the dense blocks of text, looking for something I had missed, something that would explain why this was happening now. I noticed a small box in the bottom left corner of the second page. It was easy to overlook, buried under the frightening threats of seizure and liens. Entity information update. Underneath that heading was a single line of text. Address update received. January 15th, 2026. I froze. Today was the 23rd. The address update had been received 8 days ago. Someone hadn't just used my name years ago and forgotten about it. This wasn't a dormant ghost from the past that had suddenly woken up. 8 days ago, someone had actively contacted the IRS. 8 days ago, someone had told the federal government that I had moved. They had told the IRS to stop sending mail to wherever it was going before, and to start sending it to my parents' house. My parents claimed the letter just showed up, but the system showed an active update. This wasn't an accident. It was maintenance. They were managing the lie. They were moving the pieces on the board to keep the game going, and they had moved my token without me even knowing I was playing. I looked at the date again. January 15th. On January 15th. I had been at work. I had been sitting at my desk, eating a salad, worrying about a shipping delay from a supplier in Ohio. I had been living my boring, safe life. And at that exact moment, 400 miles away, someone had signed my name to a form that effectively destroyed my financial existence. I felt a cold clarity wash over me. The shaking in my hands stopped. The nausea faded, replaced by a hard, cold knot in the center of my chest. My father had told me not to call the number on the letter. He said it was a scam. He said he needed to verify it. He was lying. He didn't want me to verify the letter. He wanted to verify that he still controlled me. I picked up the envelope and turned it over. I looked at the return address again. I looked at the logo. I looked at the watermark on the paper. It was real. And tomorrow morning, I was going to prove it. The Stonegate Federal Center was a fortress of concrete and tinted glass, imposing enough to make you feel guilty before you even stepped inside. It sat on the edge of the city, surrounded by a parking lot that was vast, gray, and meticulously lined. I arrived at 7:45 in the morning. My appointment was not until 8:15, but the idea of sitting in my apartment, watching the minutes tick by on the microwave clock, had been unbearable. I needed to be here. I needed to be close to the source of the problem. I parked my car in a spot far away from the entrance. Purely out of habit, I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired. The skin under my eyes was dark, a bruise-colored testament to a sleepless night spent staring at the ceiling. Listening to the hum of the refrigerator, I was wearing my best blazer, a navy blue structure of wool and polyester that usually made me feel competent. Today, it felt like a costume. I smoothed my hair, grabbed my bag, and stepped out into the biting morning air. Security was tight. It was the kind of security that reminded you that the government viewed everyone as a potential threat first and a citizen second. I placed my bag on the conveyor belt. I took off my shoes. I walked through the metal detector. It did not beep, but my heart was hammering so hard against my ribs, I was surprised the machine didn't pick up the vibration. I retrieved my belongings and walked to the elevators. My bag was heavy. It was not heavy with personal items, but with paper. I had spent the night tearing my filing cabinet apart. I had brought everything. I had my tax returns for the last 7 years, printed and stapled. I had my lease agreement for my apartment in Ridgehaven. I had my utility bills, my car insurance policy, my employment contract, and my pay stubs. I had bank statements going back to 2020. I had prepared for this meeting not like a taxpayer asking for clarification, but like a defendant walking into a murder trial. I was ready to prove that I existed only within the lines of the law. The elevator ride to the 4th floor was silent. When the doors opened, the air smelled of industrial carpet cleaner and toner. I checked in at the front desk. A woman behind glass took my name and handed me a slip of paper with a number on it, a 402. I sat in the waiting area. The chairs were connected in rows, upholstered in a scratchy, durable fabric that had probably been chosen for its inability to show stains. There were 3 other people waiting, a man in paint-stained overalls who looked resigned, a woman in a business suit who was aggressively typing on her phone, an elderly couple holding hands, looking terrified. We did not look at each other. In a place like this, eye contact felt like an admission of shared guilt. "Number A402, a mechanical voice announced over the intercom. "Window 7. I stood up. My legs felt stiff. I clutched my heavy bag to my chest and walked toward the row of cubicles behind the glass partition. Window 7 was occupied by a woman who looked like she was made of the same steel as the building. Her nameplate read, Marisol Vega. She was perhaps 50 years old, with sharp features and hair pulled back into a severe, efficient bun. She wore reading glasses on a chain, and her blouse was pressed to a razor's edge. Her desk was terrifyingly organized. There was no clutter, no personal photos, just a computer monitor, a keyboard, and a single pen aligned perfectly with the edge of a notepad. "Good morning," she said. She did not smile. It was not rude. It was simply a transaction. "Identification, please." I handed her my driver's license and my passport. I had brought both. Overkill, perhaps, but I wanted there to be zero doubt about who was standing in front of her. She examined the license. She looked at the photo, then up at my face, then back at the photo. She typed something into her keyboard. The sound of the keys clacking was the only noise in the cubicle. "Isla Jean Hayes," she read from the screen. "Current address listed in Ridgehaven. Is that correct?" "Yes," I said. My voice was steady, which surprised me. "That is correct. I have lived there for 6 years. And the reason for your visit today?" I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. the envelope that had been sitting on my doormat. I slid it under the glass partition. "I received this notice yesterday," I said. "It says I owe $247,000. It says the IRS intends to levy my assets. I believe there has been a mistake, a massive identity theft mistake." Agent Vega picked up the letter. Her expression did not change. She scanned the document, her eyes moving efficiently down the page. She typed a reference number into her system. I waited. I watched her face. I was looking for a furrowed brow, a look of confusion, a sign that she saw the error. I wanted her to say, "Oh, this is strange," or "This doesn't match your file." Instead, she stopped typing. She didn't move. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. She stared at the screen for a long, silent moment. It wasn't the silence of someone reading. It was the silence of someone who had found something dirty. It was the pause of a doctor looking at an X-ray that showed a shadow where there shouldn't be one. The air in the cubicle seemed to drop 10 degrees. She took her glasses off and set them down on the desk. She looked at me. Her eyes were dark and unreadable. But the neutrality had shifted. It was sharper now, more assessing. "Miss Hayes," she said. Her voice was lower. "Who filed this return?" "I don't know," I said. "That is why I am here. I file my taxes every February. I use a standard software. I have my returns right here." I started to unzip my bag. "I earn $62,000 a year. I don't have this kind of money. I don't owe this kind of money." "I am not talking about your 1040, she said. She didn't look at the bag I was opening. "This liability is not personal income tax." I stopped, my hand halfway into the folder of documents. "What?" "This is a civil penalty," she said. She spoke slowly, enunciating every syllable. "Specifically, a trust fund recovery penalty. Do you know what that is?" "No," I whispered. "It is relevant to payroll taxes," she explained. "When an employer withholds taxes from their employees' paychecks, Social Security, Medicare, income tax, they are holding that money in trust for the federal government. It is not their money. It belongs to the United States Treasury. If a business fails to pay that money over to us, we do not just pursue the corporation. Corporations can go bankrupt. Corporations can disappear." She leaned forward slightly. "We look for the human being responsible," she said. "We look for the person who had the duty and the authority to collect, account for, and pay over those taxes. We look for the person who decided to pay other creditors instead of paying the government." "I am a logistics coordinator," I said. The words felt small and ridiculous in the face of her explanation. "I don't have employees. I don't run a business. I have never withheld tax from anyone in my life." Agent Vega tapped a key on her keyboard. "According to our records," she said, "you are listed as a responsible person for the entity in question. You are listed as an officer with signature authority." "That is impossible," I said. I could feel the panic rising in my throat, hot and acrid. "I have never been an officer of anything. I have my employment contract here. I can prove where I work. I can prove I am just an employee." "I am sure you can prove where you work," she said. "But that does not prove you are not also running a business on the side, or that you are not a silent partner in a family venture, or that you did not accept a title in exchange for compensation." "I didn't," I insisted. "I didn't do any of that." "Miss Hayes," she said, "I am going to be direct with you. The IRS does not pull names out of a hat to assess a trust fund recovery penalty against an individual. We usually have a substantial paper trail. We have bank signature cards. We have corporate resolutions. We have filed tax returns signed by that individual. We have interviews." "I never signed anything," I said. "If there is a signature, it is a forgery. It has to be." Agent Vega looked at me for a long time. She was measuring me. She was looking for the twitch of a lie, the sweat of a guilty conscience. I held her gaze. I had nothing to hide, and I prayed that my innocence was visible on my face. "I believe that you believe that," she said finally. It was a strange sentence. It wasn't an exoneration. It was a dismissal of my feelings. But the system requires evidence. You cannot just say it isn't you. You have to prove that the evidence we have is invalid. What evidence? I asked. Show me what you have, if you have a signature. Show it to me. I will tell you right now it isn't mine. She sighed. It was a small, controlled exhale. She turned back to her computer. I can provide you with a transcript of the submission, she said. I can show you the entity information, but I must warn you, once I print this, and once we formally acknowledge that you have received it, the clock on your appeal rights begins to tick. You will have 30 days to file a formal protest. If you miss that window, the debt becomes final. We will move to levy. Print it, I said immediately. I want to see it. Very well, she typed a command. A printer in the corner of her cubicle whirred to life. The sound was mechanical and rhythmic, a steady ch-ch-ch as the pages were fed through. I watched the paper emerge. I watched the black ink settle on the white page. My hands were gripping the edge of the counter so hard, my knuckles were white. This debt, Agent Vega said as she waited for the machine to finish. It is for the third and fourth quarters of 2025. The entity stopped paying their payroll taxes in July. I was here, I said, in Ridgehaven, working my job. The entity, she continued, ignoring my interruption, listed a change of address recently. That is why the notice went to the new location. My parents' house, I said bitterly. She didn't confirm or deny. She simply reached over and took the stack of papers from the printer tray. She tapped them on the desk to align the edges. She stapled the corner. The sound of the stapler was loud, final, like a gavel coming down. She slid the document under the glass partition toward me. This is the summary of the assessment, she said. It lists the corporate entity, the EIN, and the officers on record. I reached for the paper. My hand was trembling slightly. I pulled it closer. I looked at the top of the page. Agent Vega watched me. Her face softened, just a fraction. It wasn't pity. It was the look of someone watching a car crash happen in slow motion. The name of the business, she said softly, almost to herself. I think you will recognize it. I looked down. The text was stark against the white background. Business name, Callahan Home, Field Services, LLC. The breath left my lungs in a rush. Callahan, my mother's maiden name, the name my father used for his projects, the name of the company I had grown up hearing about at the dinner table. The company my father claimed was a small consulting gig, a way to keep himself busy in semi-retirement. The company he swore was just a little side thing, but below the company name, there was something worse. Responsible officers. 1. Gordon Callahan, 2. Isla J. Hayes. Treasurer. I stared at the word. It looked alien. I had never been a treasurer. I couldn't even balance my own checkbook without a spreadsheet. Submitted by, Agent Vega read from her screen, her voice devoid of emotion. Gordon Callahan, she looked at me. And there is one more thing, she said. In the submission notes, there is a reference to a power of attorney on file, an authorized representative. I never authorized anyone, I said, my voice barely a whisper. The system says otherwise, she said. The power of attorney was used to request a hold on the account yesterday. It was submitted by a man named Elliot Brandt. He is an enrolled agent. Elliot Brandt, the man who had called me, the man whose voicemail I had reached. And, Agent Vega said, her eyes flicking to something behind me, over my shoulder, toward the entrance of the building. Security has just flagged a visitor at the front desk. She paused. A man is asking for you, she said. He says he is your representative. He says he is here to help you with your audit. The paper lay on the laminate countertop between us, white and crisp and horrifyingly definitive. I looked at the name of the business again. Callahan Home and Field Services, LLC. I felt a strange, detached sensation, as if the blood in my veins had been replaced with ice water. I knew this name. I had grown up with this name. It was the entity my father had created when I was in middle school. He had always described it as a consulting firm, a vague umbrella for his various projects that involved land surveying and property management. It was the company that paid for our family vacations. It was the company whose logo, a stylized green oak tree, was embroidered on the polo shirts my father wore on Saturdays. But to me, it had always just been Dad's work. It was a background noise. It was the reason he was on the phone during dinner. It was the reason we couldn't afford a new car one year, and the reason we bought a boat the next. It was his kingdom, and now, apparently, it was my burden. Callahan Home and Field Services, I said. My voice was steady, but it sounded hollow in the small cubicle. That is my parents' company. And you are the treasurer, Agent Vega said. She pointed a manicured finger at the line on the paper. I followed her finger. There it was, in black and white. Isla J. Hayes. Title: Treasurer. I have never been the treasurer, I said. I have never attended a meeting. I have never seen a ledger. I don't even know who banks for them. The articles of organization were amended 3 years ago, Agent Vega said. She tapped a key, bringing up a new screen. According to the filing with the state, you were added as a managing member and officer in 2023. The submission was digitized. Who submitted it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The nausea was returning, settling low in my gut. Agent Vega looked at the screen. Her face was a mask of professional indifference. To her, this was just data entry. To me, it was a paternity test of the worst kind. Submitted by Gordon Callahan, she read, hearing her say his name out loud. In this sterile government office, made it real in a way that nothing else had. Gordon Callahan, not Dad, not the man who taught me to ride a bike. Gordon Callahan, the man who had typed my name into a state database and assigned me a role I never agreed to. He lied, I said. He just put my name there. It is not just a name on a list. Miss Hayes, Agent Vega said. She reached for the second sheet of paper she had printed. To be a responsible person for payroll taxes, there is usually a demonstration of authority. The system looks for proof that you had the power to disburse funds. She slid the second page toward me. This is a bank authorization form, she said. Uploaded to our system as proof of your status. I looked at the document. It was a scan. Slightly grainy but legible. It was a standard resolution form for a business checking account. At the bottom, there were 2 signature lines. The first was my father's, a jagged, aggressive scrawl that I had seen on permission slips and birthday cards my entire life. The second line had my name printed under it, and above the line was a signature. I stared at it. The world seemed to narrow down to that 1 inch of blue ink. It was my name. It was written in a looping, cursive style. It looked like my signature. It looked terrifyingly like my signature. The I in Esla had the same high loop. The H in Hayes crossed at the same angle. To a stranger. To a bank teller. To an IRS agent. It would pass without question. But I knew my hand. I knew the hesitation I usually had at the end of my last name. This signature didn't have that hesitation. It was confident. It was smooth. It was written by someone who had practiced it, someone who knew my handwriting better than anyone else because they had taught me how to write. That is not me, I said. It looks like me, but it is too clean. Too clean? Agent Vega asked. I have a tremor in my hand when I sign legal documents, I said. I get anxious. My signature is always a little shaky. This flows. I looked up at her. My father taught me cursive when I was 7, I said. He knows exactly how I shape my letters. He forged this. Agent Vega did not gasp. She did not look shocked. She simply nodded. A small, nearly imperceptible movement. She was building a file, not a narrative. If that is true, she said, then we have a case of criminal fraud. Not just civil liability, but we are not there yet. We need to look at the chain of communication. She pulled the 3rd page from the stack. You asked why the letter went to your parents' house. she said. You asked why you didn't know about this debt until yesterday. She placed the document on top of the forged signature. This is Form 2848, she said. Power of attorney and declaration of representative. I looked at the form. It was dated 6 months ago. This form authorizes a third party to receive your confidential tax information and to represent you before the IRS, she explained. It allows them to sign agreements, consent to extend the time to assess tax, and receive all correspondence. I scanned the document. My name was in the taxpayer box. My social security number was there, naked and exposed, and in the representative box was a name. Elliot Brandt. Enrolled agent. Elliot Brandt, I repeated. The man who called me, the man who is downstairs. Yes, Agent Vega said. He is listed as your authorized agent. I never met him, I said. I never hired him. Look at the bottom of page 2, she said. I looked. There was a checkbox marked. It was next to a line that said, Send copies of notices and communications to the appointee. And below that, in the address field for the taxpayer, my address, it had been crossed out and updated. Care of Gordon Callahan, address 112 Maple Street, Willow Creek, Pennsylvania. They diverted the mail, I whispered. They signed a power of attorney in my name, hired an agent I don't know, and told the IRS to send all the warnings to their house. It was a perfect circle. My father created the debt in my name. He hired a man to manage the debt in my name, and he redirected the mail so I would never know the debt existed. I was the host, and they were the parasites, feeding on my credit and my clean record, keeping me in the dark so I wouldn't struggle. The come home text from my mother, the don't panic speech from my father. It wasn't about protecting me from the IRS. It was about protecting their setup from me. They needed me in that house, under their roof, so they could keep me from seeing exactly what was sitting on this desk. My phone vibrated against the hard surface of the desk. The sound was loud, like a drill. I looked down. The screen lit up with a message. Dad. I felt a spike of adrenaline, sharp and hot. I didn't want to read it. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't look away. I tapped the screen. The message opened. Isla, stop. We are handling it. Don't make a big deal out of this. You don't understand how these things work. Just come home. Don't make a big deal. He was doing it again. He was minimizing the catastrophe he had engineered. He was telling me that $247,000 of federal debt in my name was a minor inconvenience that I was blowing out of proportion. I looked up at Agent Vega. She was watching me read the text. She saw the color drain from my face. He knows I am here, I said. Mr. Brandt is downstairs, she reminded me. He likely called the person who hired him, your father. My father just texted me, I said. He told me not to make a big deal out of it. Agent Vega reached out and pulled the papers back toward her side of the desk. She stacked them neatly, aligning the corners with that terrifying precision. Miss Hayes, she said, I am going to tell you something that is not in the manual. She took off her glasses again. Her eyes were hard, flinty. If you walk out of here and go to your parents' house, this debt will be yours forever. If you let that man downstairs speak for you, he will negotiate a payment plan in your name, and you will be paying for your father's business for the next 10 years. I am not going to their house, I said. I want to kill this. I want to kill it right now. How do I stop it? You revoke the power of attorney, she said. You file an affidavit of identity theft. You give me a sworn statement that the signature is a forgery. I will do it, I said. Give me the forms. We can do that, she said. But there is one more thing you need to know before you start a war. She tapped her computer screen one last time. I checked the activity log for this account just before you walked in, she said. There was a submission made late yesterday afternoon, around 4 o'clock. What kind of submission? I asked. A request for a hold on collection activities, she said. It is a standard tactic to buy time. But the reason code they use that is what concerns me. She looked at me, and for the first time, she looked truly apologetic. The request was submitted by Mr. Brandt, acting as your attorney, she said. He cited medical hardship as the reason for the delay. Medical hardship? I asked. I am not sick. The note attached to the file says that the taxpayer, you, is currently undergoing treatment for mental instability and is temporarily incapacitated. Agent Vega said quietly, It claims that your parents have been granted emergency guardianship to manage your affairs. The room spun. They weren't just stealing my money. They were stealing my sanity. They were building a legal narrative that said I was crazy, that I couldn't be trusted, that I needed them to take control. That was why my father had called me unstable on the phone. That was why my mother had used that soothing, condescending voice. They were planting the seeds. If I fought them, they would just point to the file and say, See? She is having an episode. We are just trying to help her. They are trying to commit me, I said. The realization was a cold stone in my stomach. Paperwork-wise, they are trying to make me invalid. It is a hold request, Agent Vega said. It is just words in a text box right now. But if you don't challenge it, it becomes part of the administrative record. She pushed a blank form across the desk. Form 8821. Mr. Brandt is in the lobby, she said. Security says he is becoming insistent. He wants to know if you are in the building. I looked at the form. I looked at the phone where my father's text still glowed. Don't make a big deal. I picked up the pen. Let him in, I said. Agent Vega raised an eyebrow. You want me to bring him up? No, I said. I looked at the camera in the corner of the ceiling. I want you to bring him into an interview room. I want you to record him, and I want to be there when he explains why he thinks I am mentally unstable. I signed my name on the blank form. I made sure my hand shook, just a little, the way it always did. It wasn't the confident loop of a thief. It was the jagged, messy signature of a woman who was done being a victim. I am ready to make a big deal, I said. Agent Vega held the phone to her ear, her eyes fixed on mine. She listened for a moment, her expression tightening, then placed the receiver back in its cradle with a deliberate, slow movement. He is at the security checkpoint, she said. He claims he has an appointment. He is demanding to be let up. Elliot Brandt, I said. The name tasted like metal in my mouth. Yes, she replied. She stood up and smoothed her skirt. Stay here. Do not answer the phone if it rings. I need to get my supervisor. She vanished around the corner of the cubicle partition. I was left alone with the hum of the computer tower and the terrifying stack of evidence on the desk. I looked at the text message from my father again. Don't make a big deal. It was the mantra of my childhood. Don't make a big deal about the missed birthdays. Don't make a big deal about the arguments. Don't make a big deal about the fact that they were currently trying to bury me under $250,000 of debt. I heard footsteps returning. They were heavier this time. 2 sets. Agent Vega appeared first. Behind her was a woman who made the atmosphere in the office instantly pressurized. She was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that looked like armor. Her hair was steel gray and cut in a sharp bob. She didn't look like a bureaucrat. She looked like a judge who had run out of patience. Miss Hayes, she said. Her voice was low, resonant, and heavy as a wooden mallet. I am Supervisor Linda Harrow. Agent Vega has briefed me on the situation. Thank you for seeing me, I said. I stood up, feeling the need to show respect to this woman who clearly commanded the space. We are moving this conversation, Harrow said. We are going to interview room B12. It is equipped with audio and video recording. Do you consent to having your interaction recorded? Yes, I said immediately. Record everything. Good, Harrow said. She turned to Agent Vega. Have security escort Mr. Brandt to the interview room. Do not tell him Miss Hayes is there. Just tell him his presence is required for the case review. We walked down a long beige corridor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Supervisor Harrow walked with a stride that forced me to hurry to keep up. She didn't make small talk. She didn't offer false comfort. She was purely operational. Room B12 was small and windowless. It contained a rectangular table, 4 chairs, and a camera mounted in the upper corner of the ceiling. A small red light on the camera housing was already blinking. "Sit there," Harrow directed, pointing to the chair facing the door but pushed slightly back into the corner. "Do not speak unless I ask you a direct question. Let him talk. Men like this usually hang themselves if you give them enough rope." I sat down. My hands were cold, so I clasped them together on the table. Harrow sat at the head of the table. Vega sat opposite me, her laptop open, ready to type. We waited. The silence was absolute. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. 3 minutes later, the door opened, a security guard stepped in, held the door, and Elliot Brandt walked into the trap. He was a man in his late 40s, wearing a blazer that was slightly too shiny and a dress shirt open at the collar. He carried a leather folio tucked under his arm. He had the kind of face that was practiced in projecting unearned confidence, a wide, white smile that didn't reach his eyes, and a posture that suggested he owned the room. He stopped when he saw us. His eyes scanned the table. They landed on Harrow, then Vega, and finally, they rested on me. There was a flicker of confusion, just a microsecond. He didn't know who I was. He had been representing me for 6 months, filing papers in my name, claiming I was mentally unstable, and he didn't even recognize my face. "Good morning," he said, recovering quickly. His voice was smooth, a radio DJ baritone. "I didn't realize we were having a full committee meeting. I was just hoping to clear up a few hold codes on the account." "Sit down. Mr. Brandt," Supervisor Harrow said. She didn't offer a hand. She didn't smile. She gestured to the empty chair in the center of the room. Directly under the camera, Brandt sat. He placed his folio on the table and unzipped it. "I am Linda Harrow, Territory Manager," she said. "This is Agent Vega, and for the record, please state your name and your purpose here." Brandt looked at the camera, then back at Harrow. He adjusted his cuffs. "Elliot Brandt, Enrolled Agent," he said. "I am here representing my client regarding the Callahan Home and Field Services liability matter." "And who is your client?" Harrow asked. "The responsible officer," Brandt said easily. "Isla Hayes." "Is Ms. Hayes in the room with us right now?" Harrow asked. Brandt froze. He looked at me again. I stared back at him, my face a mask of stone. I saw the gears turning in his head. He had to guess, if he said no, and I was her. He looked incompetent, if he said yes, and I was someone else. He looked foolish. He decided to gamble on the obvious. "Yes," he said, nodding toward me with a benevolent smile. "This is Ms. Hayes." "Hello, Elliot," I said. He blinked. "Hello, Isla. Good to see you. I was just telling the agents here that we are working on getting that medical hold processed, so you don't have to worry about the stress of all this." He was doubling down. He was performing for the audience, trying to establish a rapport that didn't exist. "Mr. Brandt," Harrow cut in. Her voice dropped the temperature in the room by 10 degrees. "You filed a power of attorney, Form 2848, with the service on August 14th of last year. Is that correct?" "Yes," Brandt said. "Standard procedure." "And on that form," Harrow continued, "you declared that you were authorized to receive confidential tax information, sign agreements, and represent the taxpayer in all matters before the IRS. That is what a power of attorney does." "Yes," Brandt said, a hint of condescension creeping into his tone. "Did you witness the taxpayer sign that document?" The question hung in the air. It was simple, direct, and lethal. Brandt shifted in his chair. He tapped his finger on his folio. "Ms. Hayes and I have an understanding," he said. "The Callahan family have been clients of mine for years. I have handled their business filings, their personal returns." "I didn't ask about the family," Harrow said. "I asked about the signature. Did Isla Hayes sign that document in your presence?" "Well," Brandt said, his smile faltering. In the modern era, things are often done remotely. Digital signatures, drop-offs, it is all very fluid. It is not fluid, Harrow said. It is binary. Did she sign it, or did she not? Brant looked at me. He was looking for help. He was looking for me to nod, to play along, to support the narrative that my father had paid him to construct. He expected me to be the unstable daughter who needed protection. I didn't blink. I didn't look away. I looked at him with the cold curiosity of a biologist examining a virus. "I have never met you before 5 minutes ago," I said clearly. "I didn't sign anything." Brant flinched. He looked back at Harrow. Sweat was starting to bead on his upper lip. "There seems to be some confusion," he said quickly. "Perhaps a miscommunication within the family. I was assured." "Assured by whom?" Harrow asked. She leaned forward. "Who gave you the document? Mr. Brant?" Brant hesitated. He was doing the math. He was calculating the penalties for aiding and abetting tax fraud versus the penalty for negligence. He realized the ship was sinking, and he needed a life raft. "Gordon," he said. "Gordon Callahan brought the papers to my office." "And the signature was already on them?" Harrow asked. "Yes," Brant said. His voice was smaller now. The radio DJ baritone was gone. "He told me she had signed them at home. He said she was unwell. He said she couldn't come into the office because of her anxiety. He asked me to handle it as a favor. He said he was acting as her proxy." "So you knowingly submitted a power of attorney without verifying the grantor's identity or signature," Harrow stated. "It wasn't a question. It was a verdict." "I trusted my client," Brant said weakly. "Gordon has been a client for 20 years. Gordon Callahan is not the taxpayer on this notice," Harrow said. "Isla Hayes is, and you just admitted on a federal recording that you have never verified her identity." Harrow reached across the table. She didn't ask permission. She took the leather folio from under Brant's hands. He made a small noise of protest, but he didn't stop her. She opened it. Inside were copies of the transcripts Agent Vega had shown me, along with a notepad full of handwritten strategies. I saw phrases like delay tactics and medical excuse and shift liability. "This interview is concluded," Harrow said. She closed the folio and placed it on her side of the table. "I am seizing this document as evidence in a contested representation case. Your power of attorney is hereby invalidated effectively immediately. You are no longer authorized to receive information or speak on behalf of Miss Hayes." "Now wait a minute," Brant stammered, standing up. "You can't just—" "Sit down," Harrow said. She didn't shout. She didn't have to. The authority in her voice was absolute. Brant sat. "You are going to remain here while Agent Vega processes your revocation," Harrow said. "And then security will escort you out of the building if you attempt to contact Ms. Hayes or the Callahan family regarding this meeting. We will consider it witness tampering. Do you understand?" Brant was pale. He nodded. I reached into my pocket. My phone felt heavy. I pulled it out and unlocked the screen. The text message from my father was still open. "Supervisor Harrow," I said. She turned to me. "You should add this to the case notes," I said. I slid the phone across the table. "My father sent this to me while I was sitting at Agent Vega's desk. He knew I was here. He told me not to make a big deal out of it." Harrow looked at the screen. She read the message. Then she looked at Brant. "It seems the unwell daughter is quite capable of gathering evidence," she said dryly. She handed the phone to Agent Vega. "Transcribe the timestamp and the content," Harrow ordered. Word for word, Agent Vega began to type. The sound was rhythmic and sharp, like nails on a chalkboard. Clack, clack, clack. Each keystroke felt like a nail being driven into the coffin of my parents' deception. Brant was staring at his hands. He looked deflated, a balloon that had lost its air. He wasn't the slick representative anymore. He was just a man who had gotten caught holding the bag for a liar. The room was silent again, save for the typing. Then, the intercom on the wall buzzed. It was a harsh, jarring sound that made everyone jump except Harrow. She pressed the button. Yes? Security again? Supervisor? The voice crackled through the speaker. Go ahead. We have another situation at the front desk, the guard said. A second individual has arrived. He is demanding entry. My stomach dropped. I knew who it was before the guard said another word. Name? Harrow asked. He says his name is Gordon Callahan, the guard replied. He says he is the father of the woman in room B12, and he says he is here to take her home. I looked at the camera. The red light was still blinking, recording my terror, recording the truth. He is not taking me anywhere, I whispered. Harrow looked at me. Her eyes were cold, but for the first time, I saw a flicker of something like respect. No, she said into the intercom. He isn't. The sound of my father's voice did not come through the door like a request. It came through like a battering ram. We were deep inside the federal building, insulated by layers of concrete and security checkpoints. Yet I could hear him clearly from the hallway. He was not shouting. Shouting would imply a loss of control, and Gordon Callahan never lost control. He was projecting. He was using that specific timbre he reserved for incompetent waiters, slow bank tellers, and his children, a tone that was simultaneously patient and threatening, designed to make the listener feel small, stupid, and eager to please. I do not need an appointment, he was saying. I am her father. She is in a state of crisis. I am here to manage the situation before she does something she cannot undo. Inside interview room B12, the air grew still. Elliot Brandt, the man who had claimed to be my representative only minutes ago, shrank in his chair. He looked at the door with the eyes of a cornered animal. He knew that voice too. He knew that the man outside was the architect of this disaster, and he was terrified that the architect was about to come in and inspect the ruins. Supervisor Linda Harrow stood up. She did not rush. She smoothed the lapels of her charcoal suit with a deliberate, brushing motion. She looked at Agent Vega. Stay with the witness, Harrow said. Keep the recording running. Harrow walked to the door. She opened it and stepped out, pulling it shut behind her, but the latch didn't click. A sliver of space remained, carrying the audio of the confrontation into the room with high-definition clarity. Sir, Harrow's voice cut through the hallway. It was not loud, but it had the density of lead. You are causing a disturbance in a federal workspace. Step back from the door. I am not causing a disturbance, my father replied. I am handling a family emergency. My daughter, Isla, is in there. She is confused. She has been under a great deal of stress lately, and she does not understand the complexities of these financial matters. She is essentially a dependent in these situations. Dependent. The word hit me like a physical blow. I sat in the hard plastic chair, gripping the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. Dependent. I was 33 years old. I paid my own rent. I bought my own food. I managed my own life, but in 2 sentences. He had stripped me of my adulthood. He was painting a picture for the security guards, for the receptionists, for anyone within earshot. He was constructing a narrative where I was a helpless child who had wandered away from safety, and he was the benevolent parent coming to retrieve me. Your daughter is an adult, Harrow said, and she is currently in a private meeting with federal agents. She is unstable, my father insisted. The volume rose just a fraction. That is what I am trying to tell you. There has been a misunderstanding regarding some paperwork. She takes things literally. She panics. I am simply here to correct the record and take her home so she can rest. I am trying to protect her. Protect. That word. It was the most dangerous word in his vocabulary. When Gordon Callahan said he wanted to protect you, it meant he wanted to own you. He wanted to build a fence around you so high that you couldn't see the horizon, and then tell you that the fence was there to keep the wolves out. But the only wolf was him. I looked at Agent Vega. She was typing furiously, transcribing every word of the conversation outside. Her face was grim. She stopped typing for a second and looked at me. Is he? She asked softly. Is he here to protect you? He is here to silence me, I said. Outside, The conflict was escalating. "I cannot let you see her," Harrow said. "And if you do not lower your voice, I will have you removed from the building." "You are obstructing a guardian," my father said. He was shifting tactics now. The authoritative demand hadn't worked, so he was moving to moral outrage. "I have rights. I have a duty to my family. You are keeping a vulnerable young woman in there, interrogating her without legal counsel." "She has legal counsel," Harrow interrupted. "Or she did, until we found out her counsel was a fraud hired by you." There was a silence, a heavy, thick silence. "I don't know what you're talking about," my father said. The denial was instant, automatic. "I hired Mr. Brandt to help her, because she couldn't help herself." "Sir," Harrow said, "I am going to ask you one time. Step away from the door. You are not a party to this interview." "I am the father," he bellowed. "I am the head of this family. You cannot shut me out of my own business." "It is not your business," Harrow said. "It is hers." The door to the interview room opened fully. Harrow stepped back inside, but she didn't close it. She stood in the frame, blocking the view, but allowing the connection. "Isla Hayes," she said. She spoke my name loudly, clearly, turning her head slightly so her voice carried into the hallway where my father stood. "I need you to answer a question for the record. Can you hear me?" "Yes," I said. My voice trembled, but I forced it to steady. "Do you authorize Gordon Callahan to be present in this interview?" Harrow asked. "Do you grant him access to your tax information? Do you want him to speak on your behalf?" I looked at the sliver of the hallway I could see past Harrow's shoulder. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. I could feel the pressure of his will, the expectation of obedience that had been programmed into me since birth. "Just say yes," the old instinct whispered. "Say yes," and the yelling stops. "Say yes," and he takes care of it. "Say yes, and you can go back to being a child." But then I looked at the table. I looked at the forged signature. I looked at the debt that would swallow my future. "No," I said. "I cannot hear you," Harrow said. "Speak up." I took a breath. I pulled the air deep into my lungs, filling the spaces where the fear used to live. "No," I said loudly. "I do not authorize him. I do not want him here. He does not speak for me." The silence from the hallway was deafening. Then, my father's voice came back. It had changed. The concern was gone. The authority was gone. It was replaced by something venomous, something low and ugly. "Fine," he said. He wasn't talking to Harrow anymore. He was talking to the audience he was imagining. He was talking to the world. "Have it your way. She has always been difficult. She holds grudges. She invents problems. You try to help someone. You try to carry them on your back for 30 years. And this is the thanks you get. She destroys everything she touches. She is destroying this family right now, just to make a point." I listened to his words, and a strange sensation washed over me. It was irony, dark, bitter irony. He was describing himself. He was the one who held grudges. He was the one who invented problems to solve. He was the one destroying the family to save a few $1,000s in payroll taxes. He was projecting his own sins onto me, using my name as the screen for his movie. He was playing the victim because he had failed to be the hero. "Security," Harrow said firmly. "Escort this man to the exit. If he returns, arrest him for harassment." I heard the heavy tread of boots. I heard the jingle of equipment belts. "You are making a mistake," my father called out as he was moved away. "You are believing a liar. She is sick. She needs help." His voice faded as he was led down the corridor, but the echoes seemed to bounce off the walls of the small room. Elliot Brandt was staring at the table, refusing to look at anyone. He looked small. The power he had borrowed from my father had evaporated, leaving him exposed as a cheap accomplice. Agent Vega cleared her throat. She turned her laptop screen toward me. "While that was happening," she said, her voice clinical and grounding, "I pulled the imaging for the original submission, the one from 2023. She tapped a key. An image enlarged on the screen. It was a fax transmission. The quality is poor, she said. Old fax technology. But look at the header. I leaned in. Across the top of the grainy document, in pixelated dot matrix font, was a line of text, sent from CHFS Office, main line, date, October 4th, 2023, time, 11:42 in the morning. CHFS, I read, Callahan Home and Field Services. It was sent from the business line, Vega said. Not a home computer, not a library. It came from the physical office of the company. And look at the cover sheet, she said. She scrolled down. There was a handwritten cover page. It was scrawled in thick black marker. The kind of writing done in a hurry. The kind of writing done by a man who assumes everyone knows his handwriting and everyone will jump to obey it. Urgent. Add officer. Process today. Time sensitive. G. The G was distinctive. It was a loop with a sharp slash through the middle. I had seen that initial on notes left on the kitchen counter for 20 years. G. Take out trash. G. Mowed lawn. G. Call me. It was his handwriting. It was undeniable. He didn't just let it happen, I whispered. He demanded it. Process today. He was in a rush. We checked the corporate account history, Vega said. On October 5th, 2023, the day after this fax was processed, the IRS issued a levy warning against the business for unpaid taxes. He added you to the account exactly 24 hours before the hammer dropped. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a drift. It was a human shield. He had seen the bullet coming, and he had grabbed me and pulled me in front of him. He had made me an officer solely so I could be the one to catch the impact. I felt a cold tear slide down my cheek. I wiped it away angrily. I was done crying for them. Supervisor Harrow re-entered the room. She looked unruffled, though her eyes were hard. She looked at Brandt, then at Vega. Get him out of here, she said to Vega, gesturing to Brandt. Process his revocation and ban him from the building. I want his license number flagged in the system by noon. Vega stood up. Let's go. Mr. Brandt. Brandt stood up. He didn't look at me. He walked out. A defeated man in a shiny blazer. Harrow closed the door. It clicked shut this time. She sat down in the chair opposite me. The room felt suddenly very large and very quiet. Your father is gone, she said. But he is not done. Men like that do not stop just because security asks them to leave. They regroup. They escalate. I know, I said. He will go to my apartment. He will call my boss. He will call my landlord. He will try to regain control of the narrative, Harrow said. He has already started. That performance in the hallway was not for us. It was for the record. He is building a case that you are incompetent. She reached across the table and tapped the file where the forged signature lay. We have enough here to start a criminal investigation, she said. The fax header, the cover sheet, your testimony, the unauthorized representative. Agent Vega will initiate the fraud packet today. But these things take time. The government moves slowly. Your father moves fast. She looked at her watch. It is 9:30 in the morning, she said. You cannot go back to your apartment in Ridgehaven. He knows where you live. He has a key, doesn't he? I nodded. Yes, for emergencies. Then that apartment is compromised, she said. Do not go there. She stood up and walked to the side of the room. Opening a different door than the one we had entered, it led to a narrow service corridor. You are going to leave through this side exit, she said. It leads to the employee parking lot on the west side. It bypasses the main lobby. He might be waiting in the front lot, watching for your car. My car is in the visitor lot, I said. Wait an hour, she advised. Let him get impatient and leave, or take a cab and come back for your car later with a friend, but you need to disappear from his radar for 24 hours. I stood up. I gathered my bag. It felt lighter now, even though the papers inside were the same. The truth had weight, but it was a different kind of weight than the mystery had been. Thank you, I said. For listening, for blocking him. Harrow didn't smile, but her expression was less like a statue and more like a fortress. We enforce the law. "Miss Hayes," she said, "we don't like it when people use our forms as weapons against their children." She held the door open. I stepped into the cool, dim air of the service corridor. "One more thing," Harrow said. Her voice was low, echoing slightly in the concrete tunnel. I turned back. "You have started a fire," she said. "And tonight, you have to do one more thing if you want to survive the smoke." "What?" I asked. "You need to check the state business registry," she said. "Not just for the tax debt. Check the history. Check the archives. Because a man who forges a signature this easily usually hasn't done it just once." She looked at me with a gaze that chilled my blood. "Find out what else you own," she said, "before he decides to sell it." Then she closed the door, leaving me standing in the silence of the hallway, with the hum of the building around me and the realization that the tax bill was just the tip of the iceberg. I drove home in silence. I did not turn on the radio. I did not call a friend. I did not check my rearview mirror every 10 seconds, because paranoia is an emotion, and I was done with emotions. I was operating on a different fuel now. I was running on cold. Hard efficiency. Supervisor Harrow had warned me that my apartment might be compromised, that my father might have a key. I knew she was right, but I also knew that my laptop, my backup hard drives, and the scanner I used for work were on my desk in Ridgehaven. I needed my tools. I wasn't going to hide in a hotel room with just a cell phone. I was going to go into the belly of the beast, grab the weapons I needed, and fortify the walls. I pulled into my parking spot. The lot was empty of unfamiliar cars. I walked up the stairs, my keys laced between my knuckles, a habit from college that suddenly felt relevant again. I unlocked the door. The air inside was stale, holding the silence I had left behind that morning. Nothing had been moved. The envelope was gone because I had taken it with me, but the ghost of it remained on the counter. I locked the deadbolt. I engaged the chain. Then I wedged a heavy dining chair under the doorknob. It was primitive, but it was physics. If he tried to come in, he would have to break the wood before he broke me. I went straight to my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't check social media. I didn't check my work email. I navigated to the desktop and right-clicked. New folder. I typed the name in all caps. Records. This was not a scrapbook. This was an arsenal. I opened the folder and created subfolders. IRS, police, bank, credit, legal. I sat down. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I took a breath, not to calm down, but to oxygenate my blood for the work ahead. Step 1. The Internal Revenue Service. I went to the IRS website. I didn't search for how to fix a mistake. I searched for Form 14039, Identity Theft Affidavit. I downloaded the PDF. I filled it out with a speed that surprised me. Name: Isla Jean Hayes. Social Security number: mine. Did you receive a notice from the IRS? Yes. Notice number: CP 504. Please describe the event. I didn't write a sob story. I wrote a police blotter. My personal information was used without my consent to list me as a responsible officer for Callahan Home and Field Services, LLC. A signature purporting to be mine was submitted on bank resolution documents and tax filings. I did not sign these documents. I have no affiliation with this entity. I am a victim of familial identity theft. I attached the photos I had taken of the fax header Agent Vega had shown me. I attached the photo of the Urgent Process Today cover sheet with my father's handwriting. I attached the text message screenshot where he told me not to make a big deal out of it. I hit submit. The screen flashed. Submission received. I printed the confirmation page and saved a digital copy to the IRS folder. Step 2. The police. This was the step that usually stopped people. It was one thing to fight a bureaucracy. It was another to criminalize your parents. But I remembered the way my father had stood in the hallway of the federal building and called me unstable. I remembered the way he had tried to use my mental health as a weapon to strip me of my rights. He had already declared war. I was just returning fire. I opened the portal for the Ridgehaven Police Department. I selected File a Report, category, Fraud/Forgery. I typed in the details. I listed the suspects: Gordon Callahan and the entity known as Callahan Home and Field Services. I listed the location of the crime: the digital submission that originated from his office, affecting my residence in Ridgehaven. I uploaded the same evidence I had given the IRS. Then I added something else. I added a timeline. October 4th, 2023. Fax sent adding victim as officer. October 5th, 2023. Levy notice issued to business. January 15th, 2026. Address change filed without consent. I hit submit. A case number appeared on the screen. Case number 260199. I stared at the number. It was just digits. But it was a shield. If he showed up at my door now, it wasn't a family dispute. It was witness intimidation in an active investigation. Step 3. The perimeter. I opened 3 tabs in my browser: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I didn't just check my score. I went to the security center for each bureau. Freeze credit. I clicked the button. I set a PIN. I locked the door to my financial identity. No one could open a credit card, take out a loan, or buy a car in my name, not even me. Then I set a fraud alert. This meant that if anyone tried to access my credit, the creditor had to call me personally at my verified cell number to confirm it was me. I saved the PINs in a password-protected document within the credit folder. Step 4. The keys. I went to my email account. I went to the security settings. Change password. I typed in a new password. It was 20 characters long, a random string of letters and symbols that had no connection to my birthday, my pet's name, or the street I grew up on. Then I looked at the security questions. What is your mother's maiden name? What was the name of your first pet? What street did you grow up on? My parents knew the answers to all of these. They had taught me the answers. These weren't security questions. They were back doors they had built into my life. I changed the questions. What is your favorite book? I answered with a string of random numbers. Where did you go to high school? I answered with a random word. Titanium. I enabled 2-factor authentication. I set it to an authenticator app, not SMS, just in case they tried to SIM swap my phone. I went to the IRS website again and registered for an IPPIN, an Identity Protection Personal Identification Number. It was a 6-digit code that the IRS would mail to me, at my real address, every year. Without that code, no tax return could be filed with my Social Security number, not by me, not by my father, not by Elliot Brandt. Step 5. The mail. I logged into the United States Postal Service website. I went to the Manage Mail section. There it was. Pending change of address request. From Ridgehaven, PA, to Willow Creek, PA, status, in progress. They had tried to move me again. They had tried to divert my mail back to their house a second time, probably right after the IRS letter slipped through. I clicked Cancel Request. I clicked Report as unauthorized. I verified my current address. I uploaded a photo of my driver's license and my lease agreement. I checked the box that said, I still live at the original address. Step 6. The revocation. I opened a blank document. I typed the header, Revocation of Power of Attorney. 2. Internal Revenue Service. Taxpayer, Isla. J. Hayes, Isla J. Hayes, hereby revoke all power of attorney declarations previously filed, specifically the Form 2848, designating Elliot Brandt as my representative. This revocation is effective immediately. Mr. Brandt is not authorized to receive information, discuss my tax matters, or sign documents on my behalf. Any prior submissions made by him were done without my consent and are currently the subject of a fraud investigation. I printed it. I signed it with my shaky, authentic hand. I scanned it. I faxed it to the IRS CAF unit using an online fax service. Then I sent a copy by certified mail. I sat back. The room was quiet. The fan on my laptop whirred. I had built a wall. I had dug a moat. But I was still inside the castle alone. I needed a knight. Or rather, I needed a mercenary who knew how to fight with paper. I picked up my phone. I searched for Tax Resolution Attorney Pennsylvania. I skipped the big firms with the billboards. I looked for the specialists, the ones who wrote articles about trust fund recovery penalties and innocent spouse relief. I found a name. Eden Pike. Her website was stark, black and white, no pictures of smiling families, just text, tax controversy, criminal tax defense, complex litigation. I dialed the number. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. "Law Office of Eden Pike," a voice answered. It wasn't a receptionist. It sounded like the woman herself. "My name is Isla Hayes," I said. "I have a trust fund recovery penalty assessment for $247,000 regarding a business I do not own. I have a forged signature on a bank resolution, and I have an identity theft affidavit filed as of an hour ago." There was a silence on the other end, a sharp, attentive silence. "Do you have the assessment notice?" the voice asked. It was crisp, devoid of sympathy, but full of intelligence. "I have the notice," I said. "I have the submission summary. I have the fax header showing the timestamp of the forgery." "Can you be here in 45 minutes?" she asked. "I can be there in 30, I said. "Bring everything," she said. "The consultation fee is $500. I don't take checks." "I will pay with a credit card," I said. "Before my father tries to max it out." "Smart girl," she said. "See you in 30. Eden Pike's office was not in a glass tower. It was in a renovated brownstone in the legal district, sandwiched between a bail bondsman and a private investigator. The interior was lined with books. Not for decoration, but for use. There were stacks of case files on the floor. Eden Pike was younger than I expected, maybe 40. She wore a sharp white suit and had a haircut that looked like it cost more than my car. She didn't offer me coffee. She pointed to a chair. I laid it all out. The records folder in physical form. She read fast. She didn't gasp. She didn't shake her head. She scanned the pages like a machine processing data. She circled things with a red pen. She highlighted the dates. When she got to the police report, she stopped. She looked up at me. "You filed this today?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Good," she said. "Most children don't have the stomach for it. They dither. They try to talk it out. And while they are talking, the parents are liquidating assets and moving to Florida. You bought yourself a fighting chance." She closed the file. She leaned back in her leather chair. "The IRS case is strong," she said. "With the forgery affidavit and the police report, we can likely get the assessment abated. It will take 6 months to a year. They will fight. Because the government hates to let go of a responsible person, but the facts are on your side. You were a straw man, a ghost officer." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "So I can get out of the debt?" "The debt, yes," she said. She tapped her pen on the desk. The sound was rhythmic, hypnotic. "But you are looking at the small picture. Isla, $247,000 feels like a pretty big picture," I said. "That is the federal liability," she said. "That is just what they owe Uncle Sam. But if they made you an officer in 2023, and they did it to shield themselves from a levy, do you really think they only used your name for taxes?" I stared at her, "What do you mean?" "Corporations function on officers," she said. "Officers sign loans, officers sign leases, officers sign vendor contracts, officers guarantee lines of credit." She turned her computer monitor toward me. She opened a browser window. She navigated to the Pennsylvania Department of State website, the business entity search. "You found the tax debt because the IRS is aggressive," she said. "They sent a letter, but there are other things that don't send letters until it is far too late." She typed in the name, Callahan Home and Field Services. She clicked on the Filing History tab. "You said you checked the business registry," she said. "I saw my name listed as treasurer," I said. "I saw the date." "Did you look at the other filings?" she asked. "Did you look at the UCC liens?" "No," I said. I didn't know what to look for. "UCC," she said. "Uniform Commercial Code. It is a public record that a creditor files to give notice that it has an interest in the personal property of a debtor. It usually means the business took out a secured loan. She scrolled down. The list was long. UCC 1 financing statement. Filed. November 12th, 2024. Secured party. Apex Commercial Lending. Debtor. Callahan, Home and Field Services. She clicked on the image. The document loaded. Look at the collateral, she said. I leaned in. My eyes scanned the legalese, all inventory, equipment, accounts receivable, and then, at the bottom, under the guarantor section, personal guarantor, Isla J. Hayes. He took out a loan, I whispered. A commercial loan. Keep reading, Eden said. Her voice was grim. I looked at the amount secured. $500,000. And look at the signature, Eden said. It was the same loop, the same confident, practiced forgery. But that is not the worst part, Eden said. She closed the window and opened another tab. She went to the county recorder of deeds. If you are a guarantor for a $500,000 loan, she said, and the business has no assets, which we know it doesn't, because the IRS is chasing them, then the lender looks for collateral from the guarantor. She typed in my name, Isla Hayes. The search wheel spun. You own your car? She asked. Yes, I said. I paid it off last year. Do you own any other property? She asked. Inheritance? A plot of land? No, I said. Just my car and my savings. Then why? She said, her eyes narrowing as the results populated the screen. Is your name listed on a deed for a commercial warehouse in Willow Creek? What? I said. According to this, Eden said, pointing to the screen. Isla Hayes purchased a commercial property at 402 Industrial Park Road on December 1st, 2023. She clicked the document. Grantee, Isla J. Hayes. Consideration, $1. He transferred it to me. I realized the horror was cold and absolute. He transferred the warehouse to me. He didn't give you a gift, Eden said. He dumped a toxic asset. If that warehouse has environmental issues, or unpaid property taxes, or if it is the collateral for that loan you don't just owe the IRS, you are the bag holder for his entire failing empire. She looked at me. Isla, she said, you need to check the state business registry for other companies, right now. Because a man who transfers a warehouse for $1 to a daughter he calls unstable isn't trying to save his business. He is trying to bury the evidence in your backyard. The glow of the computer monitor in Eden Pike's office was the only light in the room. Outside, the city was settling into the evening, but inside, we were excavating a ruin. The discovery of the warehouse deed had sucked the oxygen out of the air. But Eden didn't stop. She was a surgeon who had found a tumor and was now looking for the metastasis. We need to go back, Eden said. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, the clicking sound sharp and aggressive. The warehouse was transferred in December. The tax debt is from last year. But patterns like this do not emerge fully formed. They evolve. She navigated back to the Pennsylvania Department of State Business Search Portal. She didn't look for Callahan Home and Field Services this time. She searched by officer name. She typed in Isla Jean Hayes. The screen refreshed. My breath hitched in my throat. I expected to see the one entry we already knew about. I expected to see the lie started in 2023, but there were 3 entries. Look at the dates, Eden said softly. I leaned in, my eyes straining against the blue light. Entity, Callahan Consulting Group. Role, Secretary. Date, appointed, May 12, 2019. Entity, Willow Creek Land Holdings. Role, Vice President. Date, appointed, August 4th, 2020. 2019, I whispered. I was 26. I had just finished my master's degree. I was moving to Ridgehaven. And look at the status of these entities, Eden pointed out. Status, administrative dissolution. Status, not in good standing. They used you as a placeholder, Eden said. They spun up these companies, attached your name to them. Likely ran up credit or avoided taxes, and then let them die. You have been a corporate officer for 6 years. Isla, you just didn't know it. I stared at the screen. The date in May 2019 triggered a memory, sharp and visceral. I remembered being at my parents' house. I was packing boxes, excited about my new job, excited about finally starting my real life. My father had come into my room holding a manila folder. "I just need you to sign a few things for the family archives," he had said, "and some backup insurance forms. Just in case anything happens to me, I want to make sure you and Mom are listed on the safety deposit box." "The insurance papers," I said aloud. The realization made me nauseous. He made me sign a stack of papers the week I moved out. He told me it was for life insurance and the safety deposit box. He said he was getting his affairs in order because he was proud of me becoming an adult. "He wasn't getting his affairs in order," Eden said, her voice dry. "He was getting his scapegoat in order. He had you sign the initial formation documents for these shell companies. That way, if anyone ever checked the original handwriting, it would be yours. It would be authentic. So I did sign them," I said. The guilt was a heavy stone in my stomach. I walked right into it. "You were manipulated," Eden corrected. "There is a difference between consent and coercion through deceit. But look here." She pointed to the contact information listed for the Callahan Consulting Group entry from 2019. Contact email, islah_student89@webmail.com. "That was my old email," I said. "I used that in college. I haven't logged into that account in 5 years. I don't even remember the password." Eden opened a new tab. She went to the email provider's login page. She typed in the address. Obviously, we didn't have the password. But she clicked Forgot Password. The screen changed. Recovery email sent to GoH TT PS:// dot Google com/search?Q equals Callahan Services .com Gordon, Eden said. "The recovery address is your father's business email." She looked at me. "He created a loop. He used an email address that looked like yours, one that you actually used to own, so it would pass a background check. But he kept the keys. Any notice sent to that email, annual report reminders, tax warnings, lawsuit threats, went straight to him. He was wearing your digital skin." "It gets worse," Eden said. She switched back to the tax transcripts she had pulled earlier, the ones Agent Vega had given me, but we hadn't fully analyzed yet. "We were so focused on the debt," Eden said, "that we didn't look at the credits." She scrolled to the tax year 2024. "You filed your personal return for that year, correct?" "Yes," I said. "I got a refund. It was about $1,200. "Did you get it via direct deposit?" "I usually do," I said. "But that year, no. That year I was switching banks. I asked for a paper check." I remembered it clearly. I had waited weeks for that check. It never came. When I asked my father about it, because he always claimed to know how the mail system worked better than anyone, he told me the IRS was backed up. He told me to be patient. Eventually, I just forgot about it. $1,200 was a lot, but I was working overtime, and I let it slide. "Look at the transaction line," Eden said. "Refund issued, March 14th, 2025. Amount, $1,240. Status, paid." "It was paid," I said. "But I never got it. Look at the address modification code entered 2 weeks prior to the check being cut," Eden said. "Address change, 112 Maple Street, Willow Creek, PA." "He stole it," I said. The anger that rose up in me wasn't hot. It was cold and hard, like a weapon. "He changed my address, intercepted my refund check, and cashed it." "He likely forged your signature on the back of the check," Eden said. "Federal check fraud. Add that to the list. This establishes a pattern of financial predation. It proves that he wasn't just protecting the family business. He was actively looting your personal assets. I stood up. I couldn't sit in the chair anymore. I paced the small length of the office, past the stacks of legal texts. He told me he was proud of me, I said. That week in 2019. He took me out to dinner. He toasted to my independence. And the whole time, he had my signature in his pocket to make me the secretary of a shell company. Control, Eden said. It is all about control. The IRS defines a responsible person not just by title, but by the authority to exercise control over financial decisions. Your parents have spent 6 years manufacturing a paper trail that says you had that control. They have your signature on formation documents. They have your name on deeds. They have you listed as the guarantor. But I didn't do anything, I argued. I never wrote a check. I never hired anyone. The IRS doesn't know that, Eden said. To them, you look like a silent partner who is trying to bail out now that the ship is sinking. That is why we have to be aggressive. We can't just say, "It wasn't me." We have to prove that the control was an illusion created by the actual perpetrators. My phone rang. It wasn't a text this time. It was a call. I looked at the screen. First National Bank. Answer it, Eden said immediately. Put it on speaker. I tapped the green button. This is Isla Hayes, I said. Ms. Hayes, this is the Fraud Prevention Department at First National, a woman's voice said. We are following up on the security alert from earlier today. We have a caller on the line previously who attempted to access your checking account routing number. Did they identify themselves? I asked. The caller claimed to be you, the representative said. They provided your full social security number and your date of birth. When we asked for the secondary security verification, they provided the correct answer to the question, "What is your mother's maiden name?" Callahan. Of course. However, the representative continued, because you set a verbal passcode on the account an hour ago, the caller was unable to proceed. They became agitated. What did they say? Eden asked, leaning toward the phone. The caller stated that there must be a glitch in the system and that they, meaning you, had forgotten the code. They tried to reset the password using the email address on file. And which email address was that? I asked. The recovery email ending in callahanservices.com, the rep said. That is not my email, I said firmly. That is the email of the person trying to rob me. Please remove it from the account immediately. We have already flagged it. Ms. Hayes, we just wanted to confirm that you are safe. The caller was male. Thank you, I said. I hung up. He is trying to drain you, Eden said. He knows you are fighting back. He knows the walls are closing in. He is trying to grab whatever liquid cash he can find before the accounts are locked. My phone vibrated again. Mom, I stared at the notification. It wasn't a call. It was a text. A long one. Isla, please. Your father is beside himself. He's having chest pains. We can fix this. You don't need lawyers. You don't need the police. If you stop this madness right now, your father says he will find a way to pay the debt. He will sell the boat. He will borrow from Uncle Mike. He will pay it all. I promise. Just come home and sign the withdrawal forms. Don't destroy us over money. I read it out loud to Eden. He will pay it all, I repeated. Eden smiled. It was a shark smile. Save that, she said. Screenshot it, print it, frame it. Why? Because an innocent man doesn't offer to pay $250,000 to make a problem go away. Eden said, That text is an admission of guilt. It is a confession. If the debt was truly yours, as he told the security guard, why would he offer to pay it? If it was identity theft by a stranger, as he told you on the phone, why would he pay it? He is paying it because he created it. She says he is having chest pains, I said. The old guilt flared up. A conditioned reflex. He is having anxiety because he is about to go to federal prison, Eden said ruthlessly. Do not fall for the medical guilt trip. It is the last weapon in the narcissist's arsenal. She turned back to her computer. She opened a new document. We are going to escalate, she said. We aren't just going to file the affidavit and wait for the slow gears of the bureaucracy to turn. We are going to demand a trust fund recovery penalty interview. What is that? I asked. It is a formal procedure, Eden explained. Form 4180, usually. The revenue officer conducts it to determine who is responsible. We are going to request one preemptively. We are going to invite the IRS to sit down with you, me, and a court reporter. She typed the header, Request for interview and presentation of evidence. We are going to lay it all out, she said. The forged signature from the bank, the real signature from 2019 that was used as a lure, the stolen refund check, the warehouse deed, the text message from your mother. She looked at me. We are going to force the IRS to make a choice, she said. They can either believe a pile of mismatched paperwork submitted by a man who is currently trying to hack your bank account, or they can believe the woman who just handed them the roadmap to a 10-year tax evasion scheme. If we do this, I said, there is no going back. If I give them this interview, I am handing them my father. Isla, Eden said softly, your father handed you to them 6 years ago. He didn't just borrow your name. He built a trapdoor under your life and waited for the right day to pull the lever. Today was that day. The only reason you aren't falling is because you grabbed the edge. She hit the print key. The sound of the printer whirring to life was the only sound in the room. We file this tomorrow morning, she said, and then we wait for them to blink. I am ready, I said, and I was. The memory of the insurance papers had severed the last thread of doubt. I wasn't destroying my family. I was escaping a hostage situation that I hadn't even known I was in. Eden handed me the printed request. Sign it, she said. Use your real signature, the shaky one. I took the pen. I signed Isla J. Hayes. My hand trembled. Just a little. It was perfect. Now, Eden said, checking her watch. You need to get some sleep, but before you go, there is one more thing you should know. What? I asked, bracing myself for another financial blow. I pulled the corporate filings for the warehouse again, she said. Just to be thorough, I wanted to see who the previous owner was before your father transferred it to you. Who was it? It wasn't your father directly, she said. It was a holding company called Legacy Trust. She turned the screen to me one last time. And the trustee of Legacy Trust? She asked. The person who signed the deed over to you? I looked at the name. It wasn't Gordon Callahan. It was Martha Callahan, my mother. The woman who is currently texting me about chest pains and family unity. The woman who played the peacemaker. She wasn't a bystander. She wasn't a victim of my father's schemes. She was the one who had signed the deed. She was the one who had legally handed me the poison. She knew, I whispered. She knew everything. She didn't just know, Eden said. She held the pen. The conference table in Eden Pike's office was covered in what looked like a chaotic snowstorm of paper. But it was actually a map of my liberation. We were not building a defense. We were building a weapon. For the last 3 hours, we had been assembling the evidentiary package. It was a process of cold, clinical comparison. On the left side of the table, we had the lie. This pile included the bank resolution form with the smooth, confident signature of Isla Hayes, the fax header from the Callahan Home and Field Services office, and the deed to the warehouse transferred by my mother. On the right side of the table, we had the truth. This pile was smaller, but it was denser. It contained my lease agreement from Ridgehaven, proving I lived 400 miles away when the company meetings allegedly took place. It contained my actual employment contract, showing I worked 40 hours a week in logistics, leaving no time to be the treasurer of a failing construction firm. And most importantly, it contained 20 samples of my real signature, pulled from old checks, leases, and driver's licenses. Eden picked up the forged bank card and held it next to my real lease agreement. See the loop on the Y in Hayes? She asked, pointing with a pen cap. Your father finishes the letter with a sharp upward strike. You finish with a soft curve. It is muscle memory. He couldn't help himself. He signed your name. but he wrote with his hand. "It is arrogant," I said. He thought no one would ever look close enough to see the difference. He thought he was the only one who would ever hold the paper, Eden corrected. He forgot that when you stop paying the federal government, they come looking for the paper. She dropped the documents into a folder marked Exhibit A. "We are ready," she said. "We are not going to wait for the IRS to call us back. We are going to flood the zone." Our first move was the Pennsylvania Department of State. We weren't just checking the registry anymore. We were correcting it. Eden drafted a statement of correction for every entity my name had been attached to. I, Isla J. Hayes, certify under penalty of perjury that I did not consent to be named an officer, director, or member of the above-named entity. I have never attended a meeting, voted on a resolution, or exercised control over this business. I signed each affidavit in front of a notary Eden had called into the office. The notary, a stoic woman named Sarah, stamped the papers with a heavy, satisfying thud. Each stamp felt like a hammer breaking a chain. By filing these, I was making a public legal declaration. If my father wanted to keep me on those documents, he would have to go to court and prove I was lying. And to do that, he would have to commit perjury himself. "Next," Eden said, "the warning shot." She pulled up a letter template on her screen. It was addressed to Gordon and Martha Callahan at the house in Willow Creek. "We are sending this via certified mail. Return receipt requested," Eden said. "It is a formal demand letter. It demands 3 things. 1, that they immediately cease and desist using your identity for any purpose. 2, that they provide copies of every tax return, loan application, and legal document they have ever signed your name to. And 3, that they indemnify you against all claims. They won't send the records," I said. "They would be handing me the evidence to put them in jail." "Exactly," Eden said, a thin smile touching her lips. "If they refuse, it shows spoliation of evidence or consciousness of guilt. If they ignore it, they look evasive. If they answer it well, that is when they usually make a mistake." We sent the letter at noon. I spent the rest of the day in a hotel room Eden had recommended. Paid for with a credit card I had unlocked for exactly 5 minutes before freezing it again. I didn't go to work. I called my boss and told him I had a family emergency. It wasn't a lie. The emergency was that my family was trying to bankrupt me. At 4:30 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was my father. I stared at the screen. My heart did a traitorous little stutter, a reflex of fear that I had lived with for 30 years. But then I remembered the fax header. Urgent. Process today. He hadn't hesitated to throw me to the wolves. I wouldn't hesitate to close the door. I answered the phone. "Isla," he said. His voice was tight, vibrating with a suppressed rage that sounded like a high-tension wire. "We just got a notification from the bank. Our business accounts are frozen. They said there is a fraud alert linked to the guarantor." "I know," I said. "What do you think you are doing?" he demanded. The volume spiked. "Do you have any idea what you have done? Payroll is due on Friday. If those accounts are locked, the checks bounce. The guys don't get paid. The projects stop. You are burning down the whole house." "I am not burning it down," I said calmly. "I am just taking my name off the lease." "You need to call the bank right now," he ordered. "You need to tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you authorized the transactions. We can fix the paperwork later, but you have to unfreeze the money now." "I can't do that," I said. "Why not?" "Because I didn't authorize them," I said. "And I am done lying for you." "Lying for me?" He laughed, a harsh barking sound. "I built this for you. Everything I do is for this family. You ungrateful little—" "Dad," I said. Cutting him off, I took a breath. I looked at the index card Eden had given me. It had one sentence written on it. "From this point forward," I said, reading the words, "all communication must be in writing. Do not call me again. Isla. Don't you dare hang up on me. If you hang up—" I ended the call. I blocked the number. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. They were shaking from the adrenaline of finally cutting the cord. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and waited. Eden had told me that silence was a vacuum, and narcissists hated a vacuum. They would always try to fill it. 30 minutes later, the notification pinged on my laptop. New email. From Gordon Callahan. Subject. Explanation. Please read. I didn't open it. I forwarded it immediately to Eden. Then I called her. He sent an email, I said. Open it together, she said. I could hear the clicking of her mouse. Okay, I have it. Oh, Isla, this is beautiful. What does it say? I asked, pulling it up on my screen. It was a wall of text. It was rambling, desperate, and patronizing. Isla, since you refused to talk to your father, I am writing this to explain the reality of the situation so you can stop this tantrum and act like an adult. We put your name on the filings in 2023 because the business was going through a liquidity crunch. The IRS was threatening a levy, and we needed a fresh officer profile to secure a payment plan and keep the doors open. It was a strategic decision to save the company assets, which will eventually be your inheritance. I read the paragraph twice. He just admitted it, I whispered. He admitted the date. He admitted the motive. Strategic decision. He admitted he did it to evade an IRS levy. Keep reading, Eden said. The next part is even better. We didn't tell you because we didn't want to burden you with the stress of the business details. You know how you get anxious. We were handling it. The signature was just a formality to get the paperwork through the portal. I intended to remove your name as soon as we refinanced the loan in the spring. This was temporary. We are not stealing from you. We are using the family credit to keep the family afloat. Formality, Eden said. He called a federal forgery a formality, and he admitted that he signed it because you were anxious. He just confessed to signing your name without your consent because he decided you couldn't handle the truth. Is this enough? I asked. Enough? Eden laughed. Isla, in the world of tax law, this is a smoking gun holding a sign that says, I shot the sheriff. He thinks he is explaining himself. He thinks if he explains the why, the what doesn't matter. But the law doesn't care why you forged a document. It only cares that you did it. So we have him, I said. We have him, she confirmed. I am printing this to PDF right now. It goes into the interview packet as Exhibit B. The next morning, we launched the second wave of the attack. We filed a formal complaint with the IRS Office of Professional Responsibility regarding Elliot Brandt. We attached the transcript of the interview where he admitted he never verified my identity. We attached the invalid power of attorney. We requested his immediate suspension from practice. This was strategic. Brandt was the weak link. If we attacked his license, he would stop protecting my father. He would turn state's evidence to save his own career. By noon, I received a notification that the complaint had been received and a case file opened. Brandt was now fighting a war on two fronts. 2 days later, the summons came. It wasn't a subpoena. It was a confirmation. Eden's request for a formal trust fund recovery penalty interview had been granted. But because of the fraud allegations, it wasn't going to be a casual chat. It was scheduled at the federal building, with a senior revenue officer. We walked into the Stonegate Federal Center again. This time, I didn't feel like a victim. I was wearing a black suit. I carried my own briefcase. I walked past the front desk where my father had made his scene, and I didn't look back. The conference room was cold. Agent Vega was there, along with a man I didn't know. Senior Officer Vance. He had a recorder on the table. This interview is being conducted to determine the responsible person for the unpaid payroll tax liability of Callahan Home and Field Services, Officer Vance stated. Ms. Hayes, you are here voluntarily? Yes, I said. She is here, Eden interjected, to present conclusive evidence that she is not, and has never been, a responsible person for this entity. We laid it out. Eden didn't do all the talking. She let me speak. She let me be the witness. I showed them the lease. I showed them the job description from my real employer. I showed them the urgent fax header. I did not hire these employees, I said, my voice steady. I did not set their wages. I did not sign their checks. I did not decide which creditors got paid. I was 400 miles away, working as a logistics coordinator. And the signature on the bank resolution? Officer Vance asked. I slid the paper across the table. Next to it, I slid the email from my father. My father explains that right here, I said. In his own words, he calls it a formality. He admits he signed it because he didn't want to burden me. Officer Vance picked up the email. He read it. He read it again. He looked at Agent Vega. Vega gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. The admission is explicit, Vance said. He acknowledges the intent to evade the previous levy by using a fresh identity. That is tax evasion, Eden said, and it is identity theft, and it is wire fraud. We are not the Department of Justice, Vance said. But we do have a referral process. He looked at me. Ms. Hayes, based on the evidence presented, specifically the admission of non-consent from the primary operator of the business, it is my recommendation that the assessment against you be withheld pending the outcome of the fraud investigation. We are going to flag your account as not liable for the time being. Thank you, I said. However, Vance added, we will need to depose your father and your mother. This email implicates both of them. I know, I said. Do what you have to do. We walked out of the building an hour later. The sun was shining, but the air was crisp. I felt lighter. The $247,000 wasn't gone, but it had been lifted off my shoulders and placed back where it belonged. You did good, Eden said. That went as well as it possibly could have. They believed you. They had to, I said. We gave them no choice. My phone rang. I looked at it, expecting another angry call from a blocked number, or maybe a follow-up from the bank. It was Agent Vega. I just saw her, I said to Eden. Why is she calling me? I answered. Agent Vega? Ms. Hayes? Her voice was urgent. It lacked the professional calm she had maintained during the interview. Where are you? I am in the parking lot, I said. I just left the building. You need to come back inside, she said. Or you need to get to your lawyer's office immediately. Why? What happened? While we were in the interview, she said, the system processed a new batch of incoming correspondence. Correspondence from who? From the payroll provider used by Callahan Home and Field Services, she said. It seems your father didn't just use your name for the taxes. He used your personal information to set himself up as an employee of his own company. I don't understand, I said. He is listed as an employee, Vega said. But the garnishment order for the tax debt, the one that the system automatically generates when a debt goes unpaid for too long? She paused. He listed your current employer as the source of funds for his wages. She said, he manipulated the payroll coding. He routed the lien. What are you saying? I asked, my blood running cold. I am saying that a notice of levy on wages and salary was just faxed to your logistics company in Ridgehaven, she said. It orders your employer to garnish your paycheck starting immediately to pay down his debt. And because he listed you as the guarantor of his wages, the system thinks it is valid. He is taking my paycheck? I whispered. He is trying to take 100% of it, Vega said, until the $247,000 is paid in full. I stood in the parking lot, the asphalt radiating cold up through the soles of my shoes, holding the phone to my ear as Agent Vega dropped the bomb about the wage garnishment. My blood ran cold. He had tried to take my paycheck. He had tried to take the money I needed to pay my rent, to pay Eden, to buy food. He had routed a federal lien directly to my employer, using my own job to pay for his sins. Agent Vega, I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and terror. Stop it. You have to stop it. If my employer gets that order, I lose my security clearance. I lose my job. Listen to me, Isla, Agent Vega said. Her voice was no longer the flat, administrative tone of a bureaucrat. It was sharp and commanding. I said the system generated the order. I didn't say it was processed. I stopped breathing. What? The levy instruction was sent to the payroll processing center, she explained. But you placed a fraud alert on your credit file yesterday. You registered for an IP PIN, and most importantly, you filed the identity theft affidavit. I waited, my hand gripping the phone so hard it hurt. The payroll system flagged a mismatch, Vega continued. The Social Security number on the levy request matched yours, but the responsible party code was flagged as under investigation because of the affidavit you filed this morning. The system kicked it back. The levy failed. Isla, your paycheck is safe. I let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. The wall I had built, the sleepless night, the frantic typing, the hiring of Eden Pike, had held. My father had fired a missile at my life, and it had bounced off the shield I had forged just hours before. He doesn't know, does he? I asked. He thinks he got me. He will know when he checks his account balance tomorrow and sees 0 incoming funds. Vega said, but by then, it will be too late. Supervisor Harrow has seen the attempt. She has seen the manipulation of the payroll coding. That was the final straw. You need to come back inside. We are not just flagging your account anymore. We are closing the file on you. I walked back into the Stonegate Federal Center. I didn't feel like a defendant anymore. I felt like a witness for the prosecution. Eden met me in the lobby. She had seen the alert on her own system. She didn't smile, but there was a fierce light in her eyes. He overplayed his hand, she said as we walked to the elevators. He got greedy. If he had just stuck to the tax debt, he might have dragged this out for months. But trying to garnish your wages while under investigation? That is an act of aggression the IRS takes personally. We went back to the conference room. Supervisor Harrow was there. She had a new file on the table. It was thick. Sit down, Harrow said. She opened the file. We have completed the preliminary review of the evidence provided by you and your counsel, Harrow began. We have cross-referenced the signature on the bank resolution with the 20 samples of your authentic handwriting you provided. The forensic difference is obvious to the naked eye. We have verified the fax header from October 4th, 2023. It originated from a landline registered to Callahan Home and Field Services, at a time when your cell phone records place you in Ridgehaven, 400 miles away. She flipped a page. We have also reviewed the text messages and the email sent by Gordon Callahan yesterday, she continued. Exhibit B, Eden leaned forward. The confession? Precisely, Harrow said. In his attempt to explain the situation to you, your father explicitly stated that the decision to add you as an officer was, and I quote, a strategic decision to save the company assets and was done temporarily to avoid a levy. He provided the motive. He admitted the timeline, and he admitted that he did it because he felt you were unable to handle the knowledge. Harrow looked at me. Her expression was grave. In the eyes of the service, this removes the element of willfulness from your actions and places it squarely on him, she said. You cannot be a responsible person for a trust fund recovery penalty if you were unaware of your status and exercised no actual authority. The evidence shows you were a straw man, a prop. She picked up a stamp. It was a heavy red ink stamp. She pressed it onto the top document in the file. Case closed, non-liable. I am officially classifying your file as a case of suspected identity misuse and forgery, Harrow announced. I am issuing a determination letter stating that Isla Hayes is not liable for the trust fund recovery penalty associated with Callahan Home and Field Services. This letter will be mailed to your address in Ridgehaven, your verified address, and a copy will be sent to your employer to preempt any future attempts at garnishment. I felt the tension leave my body in a rush, leaving me lightheaded. It's over? The debt is over for you, Harrow said, but the investigation is just beginning for them. She turned to Agent Vega. What is the status of the representative? Elliot Brandt, Vega said, looking at her notes. We have flagged his PTIN, his preparer tax identification number, based on the transcript where he admitted to filing a power of attorney without witnessing the signature. His practicing privileges are suspended pending a conduct review. Every hold request he submitted under Isla's name has been marked as unauthorized and voided. And the parents? Eden asked. Harrow closed the file. The sound was final. We are referring the case to the Criminal Investigation Division, she said. This is no longer just about unpaid taxes. We have evidence of wire fraud regarding the refund check. We have evidence of submitting false documents to a federal agency. And with the attempt to garnish wages using falsified payroll data, they are looking at charges that go well beyond a civil penalty. Harrow looked at me, and for the first time, she offered a small, human smile. You defended yourself, Ms. Hayes, she said. Most people freeze. You fought. Go home. We will take it from here. I walked out of the building into the late afternoon sun. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, just breathing. I watched the people walking by. Normal people, living normal lives where their parents weren't trying to frame them for federal crimes. I was one of them again. I drove back to the hotel to pack my things. I was going back to my apartment. I was going to take the chair out from under the doorknob. My phone rang as I was zipping up my bag. It was my mother. I stared at the name. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail. Part of me wanted to block her like I had blocked him. But I needed to say one last thing. I needed to close the loop. I answered. Isla! She sounded hysterical. She was crying. Deep, racking sobs that sounded wet and desperate. Isla, please. The bank just called. They froze everything, even the personal checking. Your father can't buy gas. They said there is a criminal investigation. What did you do? I told the truth, I said. My voice was calm. It didn't sound like the voice of a daughter anymore. It sounded like the voice of a stranger. You are destroying us, she screamed. Over money. It is just money. We gave you life, Isla. We raised you. How can you turn the police on your own father? He is sitting at the kitchen table holding his chest. If he has a heart attack, it is on you. No, I said. It isn't. We were going to pay it back, she pleaded. We just needed time. Why couldn't you just give us time? We are a family. A family doesn't transfer a warehouse full of debt to their daughter for $1, I said. The line went silent. Her sobbing stopped abruptly. You found the deed, she whispered. I found the deed. Mom, I said. I saw the signature. You signed it. You were the trustee. You signed the paper that handed me a toxic asset to save your own retirement. I had to, she stammered. Your father said it was the only way to save the house. So you sacrificed mine, I said. Don't do this, she begged, her voice cracking. Don't send him to jail. Please, just withdraw the affidavit. Tell them it was a mistake. We will fix it. I promise. You already signed my name on my sentence. Mom, I said. You forged my signature on a confession. I am just returning the favor. I hung up. I didn't block her number. I didn't need to. I knew she wouldn't call back. She knew that I knew. The mask of the peacemaker had slipped, and underneath was just another accomplice. 3 days later, I was back in my apartment in Ridgehaven. The locks were changed. I had installed a camera in the hallway. My bank accounts were locked down so tight that even I had to answer 3 security questions to buy a coffee. The mail arrived at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I walked downstairs to get it. There was a single white envelope in the box. It was from the Internal Revenue Service. I carried it upstairs. I put it on the same counter where the first letter had sat only a week ago. That first letter had been a demand. This one was a decree. I opened it. Subject: Notice of Determination. Taxpayer: Isla. J. Hayes. Dear Ms. Hayes, we have completed our investigation regarding the trust fund recovery penalty assessed against Callahan Home and Field Services, LLC, for the tax periods ending September 30th and December 31st, 2025. Based on the information provided, we have determined that you were not a responsible person who willfully failed to collect or pay over the taxes. The assessment against you has been abated in full. The amount due is $0.00. Your account has been noted with an identity protection indicator. Any future changes to your address or officer status will require enhanced verification. I read it twice. $0.00. It was the most beautiful sentence I had ever read. I didn't cry. I felt a deep, profound exhaustion, followed by a wave of peace. I took the letter. I walked to my desk. I opened the folder on my laptop. But then I realized I wanted a hard copy. I punched holes in the paper. I opened the physical binder I had labeled Records. I placed the letter at the very front. It was the cover page of my new life. I closed the binder. I put it on the shelf. I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea. I stood by the window and looked out at the parking lot. It was empty. No black sedans. No fathers waiting to take me home. Just the gray pavement of Pennsylvania and the quiet hum of traffic. I was safe. My phone vibrated on the counter. I walked over to it. It was a text message. It wasn't from a blocked number. It was from a new number. An unknown number. But I knew the voice immediately. "You think you won?" I stared at the words. He was still out there. He was probably sitting in that dark house in Willow Creek, surrounded by frozen accounts and subpoena papers, furious that his puppet had cut the strings. He wanted me to be afraid. He wanted me to wonder what his next move was. He wanted me to engage. "You think you won?" I looked at the binder on the shelf. I looked at the letter that said, non-liable. I looked at the silence in my apartment that belonged only to me. I didn't reply. I didn't delete the message. I simply took a screenshot and dragged it into the records folder. I smiled. I hadn't just won. I had survived. And the victory wasn't in the letter from the IRS. The victory was in the fact that when I looked at his text, I didn't feel fear anymore. I felt nothing. I had won the moment he left his fingerprints on that fax header, and he just hadn't realized it until the handcuffs clicked. I turned off the phone, lay down on my couch, and for the first time in 10 years, I fell into a sleep that was dreamless and deep. Thank you so much for listening to Isla's story. It's a terrifying journey, but it shows that even when the people closest to you try to pull you down, the truth, and a good paper trail, is the ultimate weapon. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening from your car, your office, or maybe while organizing your own important documents? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life revenge dramas where justice is served cold, please make sure to subscribe to the Leona Revenge Stories channel. Smash that like button and hit the hype button to help this story reach more people who might need to hear it. Stay safe, stay organized, and trust your gut.